Sup dogs, this is Blake here and welcome to my review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is a sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which makes it a prequel to just Planet of the Apes. God, I need to drink. Short of breath already. I'm probably just going to refer to these films as Rise and Dawn because saying out Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is a bit too long for me, and I also feel that using Planet of the Apes in the title is a little bit misleading, although I do understand why they're doing it. In fact, if I was a distributor or a filmmaker involved with this movie, I'd probably do the exact same thing, but to me, neither Rise or Dawn have yet to achieve the massive scale of the original Planet of the Apes to justify the name. Planet of the Apes implies that the apes have taken over. Yet, Rise, that doesn't really happen. The apes escape human captivity, and you get the impression that, yeah, this is probably going to be happening sooner than later, but you're still going to have to wait to the sequel before you actually get the Planet of the Apes. And then I figured, okay, well, maybe Dawn's going to show the big takeover, but it really doesn't. Once again, you get the impression that, okay, this is the beginning of the war, but we're going to have to wait for a third film before we get the actual takeover. And part of me suspects that we'll never completely see it. That's one of those things that just best left to the imagination, because I still can't buy the apes conquering the humans. So at least if you don't show us any of that, we could just figure, okay, well, something happened. Or they can just go what the original, I don't remember what movie it was, one of those earlier films where you just have like a dozen soldiers lined up, and then the apes just go around them and conquer them, and do that over and over again, and that's the downfall of humanity. So a lot of people felt that Rise really did put the franchise back on track. I can't totally support that sentiment, just because I don't really remember the original franchise very well. Now, the first film I saw like 5 years ago or so, and that held up very well. It's a really cool science fiction adventure flick, and if you haven't seen it, you really should check it out. But it's generally agreed that the sequels got progressively worse, suffering from what usually plagues most franchises like Superman or Jaws. But the fact of the matter is, even though I don't remember them very well, bits and pieces do remain within my memory, and I do remember enjoying them at the time. Admittedly, I was a kid, and my tastes were very questionable, if I choose to be generous to myself. If I feel like being really critical of myself, I'd say horrendous. I liked Godzilla's Revenge and Jaws the Revenge at that time, so, my standards of quality were very low, so if I watched all those movies right now, I might despise them all. But still, because I have such, I had a fond experience at that time, I can't really say that Rise overtook that. I thought Rise is obviously much better on a technical level. It had better screenwriting and better direction and better special effects, stuff that you'd expect, but I can't really say I remember liking it anymore. In fact, I think the problem with Rise was it was just way too overhyped, and I thought that hurt the film in the long run. When people watched it, partially because I think the Tim Burton film was such a big disappointment. I think they overreacted with their enthusiasm, and they made a good film sound like it was great when it really wasn't. So yeah, I thought Rise was good, but it wasn't phenomenal, and I will say that I was disappointed because the critics really made me think that I was going to get something spectacular, and I think a lot of viewers felt that way. But still, I had no reason why I wouldn't watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, because I liked the previous one, and the trailers looked really good too. I mean, when you had the apes riding the horses, wielding machine guns, I was like, God damn it, that looks so freaking amazing. And we get that during the end of this movie, and it was indeed pretty amazing. But as a whole, I'd say Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is going to suffer from the same problem as its predecessor. The reviews just made it seem like it was going to be so much better than it really was. It's a good film. In fact, I'd say I liked it more than its predecessor. Uh, there's a lot more about this movie that I think will stay with me much longer, but at least the good stuff. Now, admittedly, a lot of what stayed with me in regards to Rise was the sillier moments, like Draco Malfoy doing the "damn dirty apes" line. That was just very forced and awkward. Uh, but in this case, the parts that I will remember are the really cool parts. But I still don't think it's a great movie. So I don't really know what I could say about this. People keep calling Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, deep and intelligent, and has lots of themes that it's very complex. I totally disagree with those claims. In fact, I thought Dawn was a very simple film. There's a lot of cliches. I've seen these story elements done many times before in regards to the betrayals that occur, the schemes that the villains, conjure up. And I've even, seen these same themes done many times before. It's not an original film, nor is it a very sophisticated one. But that's not to say that it does these conventions poorly. In fact, the execution was pretty strong, even though, yeah, this human drama is very familiar, but it still did leave an impression on me. Even though a lot of these characters were underdeveloped in regards to the humans, I wanted to see more of Gary Oldman or the son, who apparently went through some pretty heavy shit, but they never really elaborate on that. I wanted to see more of that, but at the same time, the actors really sold the drama. Their interactions were very compelling, and they had enough heartfelt moments to where I wanted to see them get through this. And that makes it very hard when you know that humanity probably is not going to come out of this too well, based on what's going to happen in the future. The film is more interested in the ape characters, and that's for the better in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's kind of a missed opportunity. I think it would have been more interesting if they fleshed out the human characters more and made the apes, I don't know, more enigmatic, a force in the background. That's just me, though. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree. In terms of what they do, I thought the ape characters were very interesting. Caesar has really developed since the first movie. He is a much more natural leader, but that is not the extent of his characterization. Andy Serkis is perfect in the role. The special effects do a really good job at giving him a variety of emotions. But once again, Andy Serkis really deserves credit for using so much body language and his eyes to really sell the drama with that character. And he's very charismatic too. That's another good thing. Caesar was definitely the highlight of Rise, but in this film they really do go farther with him, and I agreed what they did with Caesar. And he's not perfect either, but he's a fully realized character, and they totally nailed it. And I like the supporting ape characters too. Some of them end up becoming villains, but once again, that's not the extent of their personalities. You understand why they're doing what they're doing, and actually that's what I felt about everyone, whether you were supposed to like them or not. You always understood why they'd react in a certain way. There's one human character that is pretty obnoxious, but he's supposed to be obnoxious, and he's not in the movie enough to where he really soured things for me. So all good stuff, good acting, good drama. I cared. Throughout the first half, you might think that it's moving way too slow. There's very little action. It's just fleshing out these characters and setting up their development. My dad saw it with me, and he thought it was a bit too slow paced, and he thought it was very, very sappy. I can understand that complaint. It didn't bother me as much, though. Now, the second half is when the action really begins, and it's some pretty spectacular stuff. Now, if you're expecting the apes to overrun humanity, no. In fact, it's one human colony clashing with these apes, and I'm still unsure how the apes can actually take over humans, considering it's not a totally one-sided battle. But I guess it depends on how many humans are left throughout the world, so we don't really know. But I thought some of the direction was pretty inspired. I really did like the 360 shot, and the tracking shot was really cool. Those are the parts that are really going to stand out to me, especially that 360 bit with the tank. That was just really well done. The special effects are really good. The only time the CGI really did stand out as kind of awkward was with the bear early on, but at the same time, it was still better than most CGI bears compared to like the one we see in the Wolverine. I thought this one was closer to being realistic, but when it came to the ape special effects and the makeup, I thought the CGI and practical stuff really blended in pretty well. I liked the sets too, especially when it came to Caesar's camp. It's something like you would see in an old like Robin Hood type movie, or a lot of those films where they have to almost build their entire city out of wood. That kind of stuff always appeals to me, and I thought this looked really good. It's not a post-apocalyptic film yet. I mean, it technically is, because they've said that humanity has already taken a major blow from the disease, and you get traits of it, but it's still, we're not quite at the same aesthetic level as Planet of the Apes. There is still quite a bit of green, and the buildings are still around, even though they are pretty dilapidated. But it seemed like maybe due to budget restraints, they didn't really go all out in showing how messed up Earth has become, but I got enough of it to where I was satisfied on that level. The visuals are pretty nice, and I liked the contrast between the crumbling human civilization with the more colorful, more complete ape civilization. I thought that was pretty well done too. But as a whole, I still can't really say it's great, but only because I think critics are overselling the film. As I said, I don't think it's that deep or that complex, even though, yeah, it is pretty moving, and it is smarter than most summer blockbusters, but that's only because this film never really became stupid. Compared to, let's say, Transformers 4 or The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Those films had concrete flaws that made me roll my eyes at them. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes never had that problem, but I think you need to be aware of what you're getting into. This film is much more of a drama than it is action or science fiction. So you might get bored if you're expecting a more action-packed movie. It's the same kind of film Rise of the Planet of the Apes was. So if you've seen that film, and maybe if you didn't like it, but you would have liked it if they just did it better, then maybe Dawn is for you. And if you liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes, then you'll definitely like this one, and I think there's a better chance you'll like this one more. But don't get caught up into the hype. Expect a good movie, not a great one. So if this sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out in theaters. I'm glad I saw it. It was a good movie, but I'd still say, Edge of Tomorrow was a lot better. I think that's the best film of the summer so far. But still, Dawn is a worthy watch. So I did not do a written review of this, but I did a written review of Forbidden City Cop with Stephen Chow, a kung fu comedy flick. So read that. God, I've been so slow on updating my written reviews that I'm not sure what came out before then. But I've also done Hostel 2, In the Name of the King 3, Daughter of Darkness, which is a Category 3 Hong Kong flick. It's not a kung fu movie. Then my next one should be Hostel 3. Yay. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm just beginning to work on my Critiquing the Critics written review. I've got the script that I was originally going to use for the video, but since I've changed my mind on that, I got that all done, but I need to convert it into written format so it reads more smoothly. So follow me on Twitter and Facebook specifically so you can get updates on that. And that is all I have to say. I'll see you guys later.